fence. Oh my god, it's so echoey here without the towels. So you already know what this video is going to be about. You saw the title. I know. You already saw a video, literally I think maybe a week or 2 weeks ago. I'm not sure how this is going to post, but you saw one not that long ago. I'm trying something different where I'm going to keep up with the books I'm reading and do a reading wrap at the end of the month of the books I read that same month rather than the month before, so then I'm not a month behind for when I suggest books. I will explain this better later. So right now we're going to go get our books for April. I am going to a new bookstore, so we're going to try this one new bookstore, and anything I can't find there, I'm going to stop by Barnes & Noble and pick up the rest of the books that I need for there. I think I'm getting 3 or 4. I might be wrong. I might get 4 or 5, maybe 6, because you know,
I never know how many books I get at the end of this.
But this is my outfit, and yeah, we're gonna go get our books, and then after go to a coffee shop and then just read a little. That's the plan for today. Let's go.
Last night I traded you in for 2 blue check marks, but what Instagram recommends is only breaking my heart. You take up too much space.
Okay, so we have secured 2 books. I bought 2 books. I'll show you on the book haul later. I spent on 2 books $45. So technically I only have $60 more to spend, which means probably 2 more books. I knew one book was definitely going to be around $20, but the other thing I got was a manga, which I'll show you all again later. I did not expect that one to be around $20. So yeah, it's expensive not buying at Barnes & Noble. But it's okay. It's okay. We're supporting local bookstores. Yay! We're gonna go to Barnes & Noble because I only found 1 book of the 2 that were on my TBR for April. So I gotta go pick up the other 2. Maybe I'll get a 3rd one. Just maybe. I'm still debating.
Cause a movie always ends. So give me back my Neumann, give me a chance to find a new like. But going on a bunch of first dates only makes me sadder these days. Let's go on a date. Rather it be you to cause the heartbreak. You can go and rip off the band-aid. Would I look silly if I asked you to stay? Let's go on a date. We can dance the night away. Spend a few final hours with you till you're off to be with somebody new. I sleep by your side of the bed, cause it's too hard to return to mine. I might wake up wishing you were there when I look to my right. So before this movie,
Hi! I'm back! I'm back with the big book haul. Ready? I swear, every time I say I'm only gonna go for 3 books, y'all don't believe me at this point. I should stop saying that. I keep eating my words. First we'll start off with books that I already had at home that are going to be part of my April TBR. To start off is The Teacher by Frida McFadden. I already read this book. Literally, I read it the first 2 days of May. It's still part of my, did I say April? I meant May TBR. It's still part of my May TBR, but I already completed it. But I'll just, you know, just pretend like I haven't read it yet. I actually saw this at a local bookstore for like half off, and I'm just like snatched. Got this maybe like 3 weeks ago. And then the other book that I have at home that I will be reading for May is A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J Maas. So this is the third in the ACOTAR series. She's thickums. Very thick. Why is this? Oh my god, is this exposure so like overly exposed? Hold on, let me try to fix that. Okay, that's so much better. I'm so sorry, I was so overly exposed, I didn't even notice that. And then moving on to my book haul, I'll start off with the books I got at White Oak. The first two books I got, Funny Story by Emily Henry. This was the book I originally was going to read, the first Emily Henry book I was originally going to read in my last book review, book vlog kind of situation, but I did not realize that this was going to be released towards the end of April and not early April. The other book I got was a manga, Volume 2, A Sign of Affection. I got the first one a while back, and I finally read it. I actually forgot I had it. And then I read another manga by this author too. I was really excited to start it, and it was so cute. This is not something I'll be like buying religiously every month, but every now and then when I have time, I'll get another one. I got those two books at White Oak. Y'all, when I say I was shocked at how much I spent just for these two books, I spent about $45 just for these two. It's very nice to support local bookstores, but at least the ones around here tend to be really expensive for some reason. I'm gonna try to support now and then by 1 or 2 books like I did with this one, but I cannot buy my whole book haul from one independent bookstore because I can easily spend almost $200 for 4 books. And now for my Barnes & Noble haul. The first book I have here is Morning Star by Pierce Brown. This is the third book to the Red Rising series. Not trilogy, I swear there's 6 books to there. I genuinely don't know at this point how many books there are. I got Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. I read Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez, which is supposed to be the first book in this. I have no idea what universe this is. All I know is that this is a 3-book series, all of them standalones. You don't have to read them in order. The characters do come up, so that could spoil a little bit for you, but it's a romance book. You kind of know how it's going to end unless it's like a tragic ending. I really hope that's not the case. I got Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter. This is supposed to be, I believe, a thriller mystery. I'm not sure if it's a thriller, but definitely a mystery. I've really been into thrillers lately, but I also kind of was grossed out by the last 2 thrillers that I read. But I have seen a few reviews on Goodreads, and it's been on my TBR for like ever. So I finally got the chance to get it because I was reading too many romance books this month, and I needed something to buffer out those books. And then the last book I will be reading for May, I don't know if I'm reading any of these in this order, but the last book I'm reading for May is Heartless by Elsie Silver. Elsie Silver is another author that I really like her writing style. Elsie Silver's romance books are just so fluffy and gushy and nice and spicy sometimes, but not too spicy. There's a plot, but there's also just romance, and I don't know, it's a feel-good book. And I know that after thrillers, I really need a feel-good book. So these are my books for May. This one actually might not be for May. That's just for whenever I want to read a manga. But these are my books for May. This is what I will be reading for May. Really quick, let me go grab the books that I'm going to be reviewing. These are the books I will be reviewing. These are the ones I read for the month of April. Okay, wow. I have not done a book review in a while. It's been 3 books. I don't know why I keep putting it off. We're gonna do a quick book review, starting off with A Court of Mist and Fury. So this is a reread for A Court of Thorn and Roses. I am on the second book, A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J Maas. A quick synopsis about this book without trying too much to spoil what happens in the first book. This book picks up where the second book ends. Feyre has to learn how to live with what she did. There's new relationships she navigates through, her current relationships. Honestly, that's as simplified as I could get it without spoiling everything that happened in the first book. This is not only my favorite story of the series because of the relationship that develops between Rhysand and Feyre, but because this is the first time I actually truly appreciate Mass's writing, and that's mostly because of the little vivid panic attack scene that she writes. Oh my god, when I read it the first time around, I felt like I was having a panic attack reading it. And the second time around reading it was not any easier because I listened to it through graphic audio since it's a dramatized version of the audiobook. The voice actors did a really good job at making it feel like you were also having a panic attack. So not only the writing, but the acting was really good. So that really just made me appreciate her writing 10 times more. Also, Feyre's character development in this book is just, there's just so much trauma and struggles that she has to deal with that I'm so glad Mass didn't do what I feel like a lot of authors do, which is just continue on with the story as if everything that just happened a few months ago did not happen. For Feyre, it completely just changed her whole personality, which is what trauma does. It really does affect your life as a whole, and it's not just a bad memory. The character development that she had to go through, had to learn how to live with herself and had to accept this new life of hers, I feel like it was really well told. And the period that she went through from feeling basically depressed to finally getting herself out of that bubble and living again, I felt like it was so real while at the same time being a fantasy book. It was just amazing. It gives me Aelin vibes, but Aelin will forever be my true hero. She is perfect. I love Aelin. And then of course Rhys. I love Rhys' time in this book. It was just great because that's all I wanted in the first book when they introduced his character. I just wanted to see more of him, to read more about him, and we get it in this book. Since this is a reread, I want to give a few notes that might spoil some readers who have not read the series as a whole or even the second book. If you want to skip ahead to the rating, please do so now. I am going to read it off my iPad because if I don't, I'm going to go on a tangent.
Recent holding back, knowing the whole time Feyre is her mate, breaks my heart just a little bit. I will still always love the Starfall scene. Oh my god, love that scene. Feyre and Rhys just seem to have an easier relationship and their depth of conversation flows so much better. Feyre always just seems more comfortable and more relaxed around Rhys even when she's upset and angry. She just seemed to accept Rhys a lot easier than she did Tamlin. Reading how both Feyre and Rhys healed each other and themselves from the traumas they experienced reminds me a lot of Rowan and Aelin, and that just destroys me a little bit more. Rereading makes me see Nesta in a different light now that I know how she feels. Also, I read that bonus chapter and damn, I completely forgot how much I hate Tamlin in this book. The fact that he offers Feyre's abilities as if it were his own is so frustrating. I really forget how much he sees Feyre as a possession and a trophy rather than a person. I still think he could have a better redemption arc, but I don't know how it will work. I don't think killing him off gives justice and allows him to learn and take responsibility. I hope he has another type of redemption arc, but that's just my opinions.
Going to my rating, I know for a fact when I read this book, this was a 5 out of 5 for me. This was what I wanted in the first book to begin with, but then rereading it and knowing everything that happens and just the development and the details and everything. But I might be biased because this is my favorite one, and since you know this is my favorite one, you will for sure know that this is a 5 out of 5. I'm rating this a 5 out of 5. Spice wise, I would still keep it about a 1, maybe a 1.5. I still don't think it's that spicy compared to other books because this is all plot, barely any spice. So I think that's just perfect. Now, moving on to my next book, Butcher and Blackbird by Brynne Weaver. This is, I think, my fault. This is definitely my fault. I was so wrapped up in Velaris and Prythian, and I just didn't want to leave that world that when I read this, it felt like such a come down. I just was not ready to read such a normal book, even though this is by no means normal. A quick synopsis for Butcher and Blackbird. This book is about 2 serial killers who kill other serial killers, and they meet basically hunting the same serial killer, where one of them ends up in a very abnormal situation. So our protagonist Sloane is trapped, and so then Rowan goes and kind of frees her, and they just develop this kind of friendship. There's a lot of nice banter. They end up deciding that once a year they're going to get together for a competition to hunt down a serial killer. I hate this tangle, but we're gonna work with it. Yeah, it's just a romance story between Sloane and Rowan, and the banter is cute. I feel like this is supposed to be a dark romance because of the stuff that they do. They are serial killers, and there is a list of triggers at the beginning of the book. I feel like the triggers are also a bit of a joke, the way that the author wrote them. Like, it's supposed to be kind of like funny at the same time. So I don't know if it was the writing, I don't know what it was, but it was just not my cup of tea. And I'm into dark romance. I don't know why, it just didn't click the way it was supposed to be. Rowan was basically like a golden retriever serial killer. Like, he was just so bubbly and sweet, and it was just not exactly what I was expecting from this kind of book. And then Sloane, I feel like she should have had more of her moments where she kind of just shined a little bit more, because I mean, she is a very like big serial killer who has taken down a lot of other serial killers. So I felt like she deserved more praise, or at least more badass moments, and a lot of the times it didn't feel like that. So there was a bit of a disconnect. And I also feel like with this book, what it probably lacked was that a lot of their relationship developed off pages. So because there were time jumps, they would mention about how they would text each other and stuff like that. Like, their banter was really good, their chemistry was really good, but I feel like it was not enough to sell me on the relationship. So those are my thoughts about it. I think I need to reread it again though, because like I said, I feel like I was coming off a big high from reading A Court of Mist and Fury. So it kind of just brought me down, and it was kind of hard to read. It almost put me in a reading slump. And I don't think that has anything to do with the author, the way she writes. I think that was just, again, the type of mood I was in and what I wanted to read next. So I really do think I need to give this another try. So I'll probably reread it again later in the summer, because I know the second book is gonna come out in June, or just summer of 2024. And so I rated this a 3 out of 5. Spice wise, I would say maybe like a 2 out of 5. I kind of skimmed through it. I was not really into it. Then the last book I read was And Then She Was Gone by Lisa Jewell. So this was a thriller, which was thankfully very different from the other 2 books that I read. But this was a thriller, and I feel like that's exactly what I needed to get me out of this reading slump that I was starting to get into. So this story is about this family whose daughter, Ellie, their youngest daughter, goes missing. 10 years later, after the mother has tried to look for her, she's basically told that they found her body remains and she's dead. And so she's finally able to move on, and they have this kind of like broken family. So she's just trying to move on and like reconnect with her family. And she ends up meeting this guy who has a daughter that reminds her so much of Ellie when she was younger, just of Ellie in general. And so basically it just follows the story of Laurel trying to move on from her daughter's death while meeting this guy who has a daughter that looks and acts a lot like her own daughter. And it just follows this crazy kind of story. It was so icky and suspenseful, and it kept you wanting to read, and it just did everything I wanted the book to do. It was so good, so well written. It made me feel disgusting at the same time, and I'm just like,
I don't like this feeling, but I also like the book.
So it took me a while to figure out what I thought about the book. I feel like it was really, really good. It did what I wanted it to do. It got me out of my reading slump. It was a very twisty kind of book. It had multiple point of view, so you got a thorough explanation of everything that happened. The plot twists were twisting, the vibes were vibing, the ickiness was icky. This was a palate cleanser book, even though it's nothing like I normally read for a palate cleanser. To rate it, I gave it a 4.5 out of 5. It was a really, really good book. It would have been a 5 out of 5. I had to drop 0.5 off of it just because of the big reveal felt a little bit cheesy and a little bit predictable. And that's quite literally the only reason. But this book was a really good read. It just really kept me entertained the whole time. I would definitely check out triggers for this book as well, because it is not everyone's cup of tea. For sure. Not everyone's going to enjoy reading this book. It does make you feel some kind of way, but the writing and the storyline is actually really good. So if you're into thrillers and you don't mind ickiness, I recommend this one. So I'm going to be reviewing Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. A quick synopsis for the story. This is about a girl named Emma. Basically sees a post on Reddit where it's am I the a-hole? And the whole like Reddit post was about him having a curse of every woman he breaks up with ends up finding his soulmate. So Emma sees this account and she's like,
Oh, that happens to me. Every guy I end up dating always finds his soulmate.
so she ends up sending him a message. They end up talking. They talk about breaking their curse with each other, basically. It has a very cute, kind of whimsical, unrealistic romance story to it, but at the same time can be so grounded because it has a lot of hardship that both characters go through, both the protagonist and the main love interest go through. So there's a lot of character depth to them, not just a cute little romance story. And of course, it gives summer vibes. We have a golden retriever kind of boyfriend. It's such a good combination of romance and real life at the same time. If the romance was not there, this book could still hold with just that plot of what Emma goes through with her relationship with her mother and what Justin goes through with his relationship with his own mother and his family and all that stuff. I just really enjoyed this book. Like I said, it made me laugh, it made me cry a little. It had such sweet endings. It had such like beautiful scenes. They were all so understanding. Yeah, it was just a really good book, and I feel like it's a romance book that I'll probably be recommending, so I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5. I finished reading Golden Sun by Pierce Brown over the weekend, so I'm going to give a quick review. So Golden Sun is the second book in, I want to say trilogy, the Red Rising trilogy, but from what I've heard, it's no longer a trilogy. It turned into a saga, and now I think there's like 6 books. So I'm just going to say series, the Red Rising series. I'm not going to give too much of a quick synopsis because it is the second book, and if I explain too much of what happens in this book, it spoils the first book for you. Just like any series, the second book picks up where the first book left off. I feel like this book is a lot more political, while the first book was more introduction of the world, setting up the characters, the character development of the characters, kind of figuring out what role they're going to play, and this one became very political. It just revolved a lot around politics and rebellions and dismantling societies, and how people can't just dismantle societies without having a plan, without having something concrete. If not, there's just a power vacuum that happens. It is a wild journey. It ends with a huge cliffhanger. The whole weekend I had to stop myself from going to Barnes & Noble and getting the third book in the series because, whew, oh boy. From what I felt with this book, like I said, there was a lot of twists. I think like the first few 50 pages, I almost felt like I was going to be disappointed because they were taking a turn where I felt like it ruined the first book completely. But then it was just like,
just kidding, something else happens.
And it just happened over and over, and it was just, I was forgetting who to root for. It's so hard to keep track of who's the good guy, who's the bad guy. And like I said, it's just twist after twist, and it's so engaging. I literally could not put this book down. Overall, my rating for this book, because I was so engaged in it, I'm going to give it a 4.5 out of 5. It was so close to a 5. Sometimes it did get really hard for me to understand, but it was also really good. You definitely have to put your thinking hat on for this book. That aside, it was very action-packed. I don't feel like it was slow-paced at all. There was always something happening. There was so many twists, and the ending left me wanting more, and I am willing to continue the series because I really want to know what happens in the third book. This weather is so gloomy today. I finished Book Lovers. This is my first Emily Henry book, so I was so excited to read it. Just a quick synopsis for Book Lovers. The story is about Nora, our main character. She sees herself as basically the villain of a small town romance. She is the typical bleached blonde career-driven woman that gets dumped for the whimsical, down-to-earth, small-town girl. Nora basically feels like she has this reputation of just being the villain of her own story. Oh my god, do you guys see that pimple? I had to put a pimple patch. Basically, Nora ends up meeting up with this one editor who she presents a book to, and the editor was basically like, nope, I don't like it, and they just don't click off. They're not really compatible. They're constantly arguing. 2 years later, she goes through another breakup where the guy again breaks up with her for a small town girl. And her sister ends up saying, you know what?
We're going to go to a small town and you're going to live your small town fantasy.
Nora is just going to please her sister. She doesn't really care much for the small town. She's actually a really big city girl and she likes living in New York. In said small town, she meets the same editor that she met before previously, and it's just kind of a story that follows their romance, and there's so much banter. It's a rom-com. It's a twist to the small town romance. It is, in my opinion, a more realistic romance. It's just great. I really liked it. I think my favorite thing about this book wasn't even the romance, it was just the relationship between the sisters. I felt like that was such a sweet part of the story. I also really liked the twist to the small town romance, because even though not everyone likes the city, I like that this whole idea was just like, yes, being in a small town is nice, but you know what? I like living in the city. I like that I'm career driven. I like my job, and I'm okay to want to constantly be pursuing my job. So I feel like it just did a really good job of dismantling what a usual small town romance book was and made it its own. And it was just so good. I understand now why people like Emily Henry. I'm definitely going to read another one of her stories. I am really excited to go pick up Funny Story. That's actually the real reason why I went to get Book Lovers, because I thought Funny Story had already come out. My rating for Book Lovers is 4 out of 5. Okay, so just really quick, I wanted to give a quick update. Even though I just started this segment in my series, this like whole book reading, book vlogs segment, I'm going to switch it up a little bit. Something that's been kind of bothering me about this little segment, every time I post my videos, they're always a month behind because I edit them for the next month. I don't edit them for the current month that I read them. My last video that y'all saw were books for the month of March, but you didn't see that until April. I want to be able to recommend books for the season, because sometimes, just like everyone else, I'm a seasonal reader. I like reading books for the summer. I like reading fall books, spooky books, Christmas books, stuff like that, you know? And a lot of the times I miss those opportunities to recommend books because I always post them a month late, technically. This is why you're seeing almost a back-to-back video of a book review slash book TBR. So I apologize for that. Moving forward, I'm going to be doing more reading vlogs instead, so that way I can review the books while I'm reading them, and instead of having a 20-30 minute long video at the end of the month where I review all of the books, I'm going to have more of a reading wrap up where I don't go in depth for a review. You could just look at my reading vlogs for that, but I'll just give a quick how I felt about the book and the rating. I can have a reading wrap up slash TBR for the month be about 10 to 15 minutes tops. So that's kind of what I'm planning to do. All these books that I said I'm going to be reading for May, you're going to see a reading wrap up either end of May or early June, depending on how I post and edit. I don't know if this is going to make it into the list. I really don't know. This is a lot. These are a lot of books. This is really ambitious. How many books is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 7 books. Oh my god. Why did I do this? There's 7 books. I already read 1, so I think I can read the other 6 in the next 4 weeks. We'll see. As always, thank y'all so much for watching. I have so much fun on these book trips. I am so caffeinated right now, but it's okay. It's okay. I'm going somewhere fun later. So anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Have a beautiful day, and I will see y'all next time. Bye.